I can assure you, we're not the same. They seem to be built only to destroy, and we were born, not bitten, by the way, not cursed, and seem to exist only to protect. The Fellborn have killed my friends. They've wreaked havoc on my family. My throat started to close up, but I took a sip of water and continued. We're working on containing the Fellborn, but for now, please understand, we are not the same thing. So, what I'm going to ask you to do is 3 things. First, keep calm. We're all working on this situation. You'll know when we do because that's one of the agreements I have with the folks I'm working with. Transparency. From now on, no more secrets. Second, cooperate. We're all in this together. We don't know what's coming next with the Makers, but I'm convinced we need to stick together on this one. All of us, all across the world. The third idea, well, that's more my idea of something to do until we have a solid plan. Hug someone. We could all use a hug right now. I know I could. This kind of contact is unprecedented, and we should learn from our own colonial mistakes if at all possible. We want to make sure we can't be friends before we know we can't. I took a deep breath and another sip of water. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to remain in contact with the Makers, and to answer a question I've heard an awful lot of lately, why am I talking to them and not someone else? I'm doing it because I'm the one who can. I'm representing all of us. I think this will be easier to get through the more cohesive we can be, so if you can find it in your hearts to try and set aside any animosity against your neighbor, the guy who doesn't look like you, the Fangborn, even the jerk who cuts you in line, that would be good. Thanks. I was about to walk away, but thought of something and stepped back onto my mark. I looked back into the camera, trying not to squint against the bright lights. One last thing. I'm doing the best I can. Chapter 1. Quarrel, I whispered frantically, trying to get my bearings. You there, my friend? I really could use some help here. I was rain-soaked to the bone, in a world of pain, and nowhere that I recognized, with my worst enemy, Jacob Buell, dazed and muttering quietly across the dark alley from me. It looked like Japan, and the train station across the street had a sign that said Kanazawa. I should have been in Boston. An instant ago, I had been there with my friends and family, fighting the Order of Nicomedia, who had apparently started an all-too-public campaign to wipe out us Fangborn once and for all. I should have been in Boston. Somehow I wasn't. There was nothing, just the pelting rain, the cool humidity, and the unfamiliar sounds of traffic in the street just beyond. Not a word from Quarrel. I'd never tried reaching out to him on my own before the first time I traveled to meet him. He'd always contacted me. Since the dragon's voice usually threatened to dissolve my insides with its volume, I didn't know whether he could hear me, didn't want to answer, or couldn't respond. None of these were reassuring. I needed a friend. I needed to know where I was. And I needed to know what had happened to my powers, which had become pretty impressive when I knew what I was doing. The flat stones of the bracelet, mystically embedded in my right wrist, looked dull and dead. And last I'd checked, the other elements, which had been gradually covering my body like jeweled armor, had vanished entirely. I'd apparently done something so awful, my powers had been taken away. So terrible, a dragon had gotten frightened and fled from me. The only thing I could think of was that the unseen Makers, who had been inspecting me just before I arrived here, had taken offense when I'd told them to fuck off with the riddles and tell me what they wanted, plain and simple. Maybe dropping the F-bomb was going too far, but I'd had a pretty grueling day. I at least hoped it was still the same day, and that somehow I'd find myself back in Boston before too long, fighting the Order and their revolting creations. I might be a werewolf, but my Fangborn family, including vampires and oracles, were the good guys. Actually, it had been a tough week, what with the jet setting, the search for Fangborn artifacts, and their integration with me as